You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Greetings, citizens of the Milky Way. My name is Dylan Hackworth.
And I'm Maureen Bogey.
And this is the Creep Street Podcast.
All right, and just really quick up top, want to remind everyone we are on Instagram at Creep Street Podcast. Twitter, we are at Creep Street Pod. We're also on Facebook. And if you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, we just really want to ask in a real nice, chill way.
Please.
To toss us that sweet, sweet 5 stars.
Yes.
But you know what? If you're listening to us wherever you are, just
Yeah.
do you. Thanks for being here. We're just jazzed about it.
This is our first serial killer episode, Mo.
I know. I'm very excited.
This one we are doing in particular. I want to give a shout out because we've had a few serial killers requested, but the other day, Instagram user EnzoB999 reminded us maybe you should do a serial killer episode soon. And we were like, holy crap, we haven't done that yet.
I know.
We haven't done a cult episode yet, which is coming.
Right. Very soon.
We will. Oh, baby, we're going to get to it all.
We're getting to it, and it's going to be sexy, honey.
So, yeah. Oh, by the way, her Instagram has some awesome art. Go check out
hell
her
yeah.
art. It's really cool stuff. Do you know what we're talking about today?
I do, but I honestly don't know a lot about it, so I'm going to be learning along with our listeners. I'm very excited.
We are going to be talking about Leonarda Cianciulli, a.k.a. the Cannibal soap maker.
Okay, go on.
This is an Italian serial killer. I knew nothing about. I had never heard of her.
Me neither.
But she fascinated me the second I heard about her. Now, maybe our listeners in Europe, our friends over there, maybe they are a little more acquainted with her.
Sure, yeah.
You know, we were debating, like, what should our first killer be? Obviously, do we want to do a Bundy? Do we want to do a old Jackie Boy, the Ripper himself?
Right,
Do we
right,
want to
right.
do H.H. Holmes? You know, there's so many.
Richard Ramirez was up there.
And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do episodes on them. But we thought, you know what? For our very first one, why don't we go ladies first?
Yes.
Why don't we go ladies first? And here's the thing.
Oh.
Her body count, it was not that large. It was only 3 people. But boy, did she have a fucking MO.
Sure.
She had some fucking style.
Yeah.
She's what we call quality over quantity.
Oh, gotta be grateful for that.
She only killed 3 people, but boy, howdy, did she kill 3 fucking people.
Right.
And also, just a warning up top. Obviously, we're going to be talking about some gross stuff, but also this woman's life, she had a horrible, horrible fucking upbringing. So just
Yikes.
pre-warning, it's pretty depressing shit. It's all bummer town. It was a horrible, horrible fucking life.
Oh, no.
And it started off horrible. She was born April 18th, 1894. Her mother was raped.
Oh, God.
And she was the product of that
God.
act. Her mother married the rapist. And I'm assuming...
Oh, no.
But here's what makes it even worse. She did not mask her lack of love for Leonarda. She was not happy she was born. She hated her very...
She was kind of projecting all of that hate she had that experience as if it was like her fault, the baby's fault. Yeah, that's terrible.
What a horrible origin story. But I guess if there's any good news, that son of a bitch did die when she was a toddler. But Leonarda was raised in extreme poverty. And though her mother did marry again, their economic status never really changed.
Yikes.
And her mother, as I said, very open about her lack of love for Leonarda.
Oh.
And because of this put a very deep-seated... She felt her misfortune was something predestined. It was her destiny to be miserable. And because of that, she would do whatever it took to break this cycle of misfortune or to at least keep more from piling up. So even as a child, she was a nervous wreck because she already knew she wasn't wanted. And she was afraid the smallest thing, she'd be out on the streets, you know. So horrible way for a child to live. As a youth, her parents tried to force her to marry a man who was well off. But to her credit, she fucking refused.
Okay.
She married a man who was a registry office clerk who was much older than her apparently and obviously didn't make as much as this other guy, but and she believed her whole life was cursed and she took this very seriously. When she married this man, she was convinced her mother put a curse on their marriage. She was convinced it was twofold. One, she thought she was just born cursed, and 2, she thought on top of that her mother cursed her relationship.
Oh yeah, this is some Catholic guilt turned to 11.
Yes. Well, she was a very superstitious person, and she had always had a fascination with the mystical, with you know, tarot, fortune telling, palm reading, you know, all the like. And she was obviously determined to avoid misfortune at whatever the cost. In 1921, her and her husband moved to Lauria, Italy, which is now modern-day Potenza. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Financial problems still plagued her, however, so much so that she began to partake in illegal activities as a way to make ends meet. And in 1927, she was sent to jail for fraud. After getting out of prison, her family moved to Lacedonia, present-day Avellino.
Ooh.
And after her stint in jail, she was like, you know what? I'm starting fresh.
Right.
No more of this illegal shit. Her misfortune reared its head again in 1930 when the family's home was destroyed in an earthquake, making them homeless.
Oh, God.
And it wasn't just like they got, apparently about 14, from what I read, also, by the way, let me just list my sources.
Oh, yeah. We got to do that.
I got a lot of good stuff from an article by a writer named Katie Serena, published in allthat'sinteresting.com. Meet Leonarda Cianciulli, the serial killer who turned her victims into soap and tea cakes. So thank you, Miss Serena. And there was also a site, Murderpedia, which I had never heard of. I couldn't find a distinct author, but I borrowed a bit from that where I had to fill in blanks. But in 1930, their home is destroyed in an earthquake. And from what I read, it wasn't just them. I mean, apparently 1,400 people lost their lives. So this made them homeless, obviously. Finally, Leonarda's luck began to change. Her and her family moved to Correggio Reggio Emilia, Italy. And Leonarda opened up a soap shop and became a respected businesswoman, respected figure about town.
Okay, this is where we're okay.
And I wish I could say this is where it ended. Because you think, my God, the literal hell this woman was raised in. God, if she could have just found some stability. But unfortunately, that is not where our story ends. But yes, finally, the family did have financial stability. Time passed, family found comfort. But misfortune would come again, but this time in a different form. During this time, Leonarda got pregnant 17 times.
Oh my God.
She had 3 miscarriages. 10 of her children died at various stages in childhood. Only 4 of her children survived.
Oh, that is so... I can't...
It's horrible.
That is...
You'd think that even if most of your life is shit, things got to come up good every now and then.
Oh my God.
That's just how, just
like fucking
just how
stats.
Numbers work.
Yeah.
Stats. It's just, you got to think sometime this woman's going to
or
get
averages.
a fucking
Yeah,
break,
that's
right?
insane.
Leonarda was an emphatic believer, as we know, in astrology, palm reading, tarot, and the like. And she, as we said, truly believed her misfortune was predestined. And it didn't fucking help. When she went to a fortune teller.
Oh, no.
And a fortune teller told her that the remainder of her children would also die. So Leonarda took this as the gospel truth. Her children were sure to die.
No.
It was just, in her mind, it was fact. Unless Leonarda could find a way to keep it from happening.
Okay.
And on top of that, she was also afraid of this curse she believed her mother had put on her, too.
Oh, right. I
so
forgot.
It's a double dose of just shit. This was
Overwhelmed.
a big bag of shit.
Yeah, it sucks because you're like, no, don't think that you were predestined to have a shitty life and to be cursed and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it's like every part of your life kind of made it seem like you were cursed and shit.
Absolutely.
So it's like, I get why she's fucking sad.
It's like, well, damn, this woman has had the...
Cannot catch a goddamn break.
She starts brainstorming.
Okay.
How can I convince the fates to spare my 4 children? Well, as we know, Leonarda had a rather extensive knowledge in the esoteric arts.
Sure.
In magic, different forms of magic, but she had a rather astute knowledge in black magic. And in certain paths of black magic, not all, obviously, in certain paths of black magic, there is spoken of this sort of transactional nature that we have with the afterlife. So if you don't want someone to die, you have to then offer up someone else.
Right. You got to get that number in there.
You got to, tit for tat.
Tat for tit.
Supply and demand.
Oh, fuck, I know so much about economies.
Good golly, Miss Molly, did she take this idea and fucking run with it? She was running this soap shop, but also she would also work sometimes as a fortune teller.
Oh, yes.
And because of this, her victims would come to her with open arms. Now, let's get something straight. As I said before, her body count, not that big, 3 people. But God Almighty, she was quality over quantity.
Sure.
Oh boy. So her first victim was a woman named Faustina Setti. She was a middle-aged woman who had never married, and she was desperate to be married.
Oh no, girl.
Poor gal. I know, it's kind of sad. Leonarda promised Faustina a husband and said this husband was waiting for her in Pola, which is now modern-day Croatia. This was only under the condition that Faustina not tell anyone. It had to be a secret. Faustina could not tell anyone. It was under the agreement that, hey, you tell no one, Faustina.
Oh, no.
She convinced Faustina to write letters to her friends and family in advance, assuring them that she was alive and well and happy as hell with her husband over in Pola, modern-day Croatia. Leonarda would later send these letters to the victims' acquaintances, as to sort of keep up the ruse that she was alive and well. Before Faustina took off to Croatia to be with her hubby, she paid one last visit to Leonarda at her home before taking off.
Another no.
And it was here that Faustina was served by Leonarda a spiked drink.
That sucks.
When she was unconscious from this spiked drink, Leonarda took an axe and murdered Faustina with it.
Wow.
Make sure you're not eating lunch. She cut the body into pieces, collecting the blood separately. In her memoir, she described exactly what she did with the body.
What?
I threw the pieces into a pot, added 7 kilos of caustic soda, which I had bought to make soup, and stirred the whole mixture until the pieces dissolved in a thick, dark mush that I poured into several buckets and emptied in a nearby septic tank. As for the blood in the basin, I waited until it had coagulated, dried it in the oven, ground it, and mixed it with flour, sugar, chocolate, milk, and eggs, as well as a bit of margarine, and kneading all the ingredients together. I made lots of crunchy tea cakes and served them to the ladies who came to visit, though Giuseppe and I, her son, also ate them as well. Some sources also say that Faustina, as payment, gave Leonarda her life savings of 30,000 lire.
Oh my goosh. Woof.
And also, by the way, it said that she loved her children, but her favorite of the group was Giuseppe. And Giuseppe, I forgot to mention this, what really kicked all this off, after the fortune teller told her your children are going to die, not long after Giuseppe was notified he was being drafted into the Italian army because it was World War II. Mama Bear is like, no, Mussolini.
Right.
You ain't getting my son killed.
Yeah. She's like, no.
I forgot to mention that. That's what really spiked the ball. That was think about it. You already got that in your head.
And then she's like, oh, my son is supposed to join World War II?
All of a sudden, a draft notice shows up for one of your children. Oh, my God.
I see. That's the thing. I get she's a desperate mom.
Absolutely.
She's like, I will do whatever it fucking takes. So, like, I understand the passion behind it. But good Lord. So she didn't just turn people into soap. She also turned people into fucking cakes and shit.
Oh, yeah. So, yes. And we'll get to the soap part. We haven't got this, but yes. Well, as we know, Leonarda had 4 living children and therefore need 4 lives to exchange. Leonarda's second victim was a woman named Francesca Soavi. So according to Leonarda, how she did this was she told Francesca she had gotten her a job at a school for girls in Placenza. Sorry if I didn't say that right. Now, just as she had with her first victim, Leonarda had Francesca write letters and postcards to her friends and family telling them how much she loves her new job.
Oh, God.
And on September 5th, 1940, Francesca paid one last visit to Leonarda before she headed to Placenza. And once again, she was served a spiked drink.
Okay.
And just as before, after Francesca had fallen unconscious, she was murdered by Leonarda with an axe, and she did the same thing to her body that she had done with Faustina before.
Yikes.
And here's what's interesting, and we're going to circle all back to this because I'm noticing something weird here. And it also says Leonarda claimed to have received 3,000 lire. Sorry if I'm not saying that right. I think it's lire. So yes, she said in addition to that, she had received 3,000 lire from Francesca. So that means 2 more people gotta fucking die.
Fuck, you're smart.
In order to cover all our bases, because she has 4 living children.
Right. So we got 2. We knocked off Faustina and we knocked off Francesca. Yes. So we need 2 more.
Leonarda's third victim was probably her downfall. Victim number 3 was a gal named Virginia Caciapo. I'm sure I said that last name wrong, so I'm going to call her Virginia because that I can say.
Yes, Virgins.
Virginia was a well-known opera singer who had apparently performed at the La Scala, which is a celebrated opera theater in Milan, Italy.
That I did know.
So if you want to keep under the radar,
this seems like she could have avoided this.
Could have found, but I mean, hey, if if you truly think your children's lives at any moment,
I guess you're just willing to do whatever it takes.
You're just going to kill anyone who walks through the fucking door.
Even if it's a smoking hot celeb.
She lured in Virginia by saying she had gotten her a job working as a secretary for a very powerful and mysterious impresario in Florence, Italy. Now, I had heard that word. I didn't know impresario. I just thought it meant you're a fucking stud. It was someone who would book and fund concerts, especially the day. So this was like the opera equivalent of like a movie producer.
Oh, I see. Now this makes more sense.
And so, like the first two victims, Leonarda stressed to Virginia, don't tell anyone.
Right.
On September 30th, 1940, Virginia paid one last visit to old Leonarda before heading off to become a superstar soprano in Florence. Just like the victims before her, Virginia was served a spiked drink, murdered with an axe, and her body got the same treatments as the first two. And Leonarda was quoted as saying this about her third victim. She ended up in the pot like the other two.
Yikes.
Her flesh was fat and white. When it had melted, I added a bottle of cologne, and after a long time on the boil, I was able to make some most acceptable creamy soap. I gave bars to our neighbors and acquaintances. The cakes, too, were better. That woman was really sweet.
Oh, good Lord.
Here's the thing. Part of me almost hopes Leonarda was aware of the pun she made. I mean, if you're going to be a monster, don't be a monster. But if you have to be a murdering monster, might as well throw some fucking puns in there.
So she's saying like, hey, she tasted sweet, but also she was like, well, this is what I got to say. I kind of think she really meant she was sweet tasting.
Like in the literal, like, wow,
I don't think she even...
Her meat was tender and sweet.
Yes, I think that's more of what she's saying. She's just commenting, being like, oh, this fat singer tastes so good.
Well, she didn't know it, but she was a fucking comedian. Someone should have given her a mic.
It's arts education. This is why we need arts education.
It keeps people from becoming tea cakes, and it turns would-be serial killers into stand-up comedians. So here's another thing that grabbed my attention.
Okay.
And according to Leonarda, she reportedly received from Virginia 50,000 lire.
Yikes.
Assorted jewels and public bonds, and apparently she even, like, all of her clothes
Girl,
and shoes and stuff,
no.
she was able to sell all these off. Here's what was interesting. Even though Virginia gave her by far the largest amount of money, it doesn't say in the first, on the first description, it says life savings.
Right.
The unfortunate sad reality is the reason why Leonarda's downfall happened was because her third victim happened to be someone people gave a shit about.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean that in a sad, somber
No, it's really
way.
fucked up. Yeah.
That's sad. If you look at the second victim, poor gal only gave her 3,000. But it's so telling to me that all of a sudden people start taking notice when a star singer goes missing.
I know, it's really sick.
People didn't start sniffing around until the opera singer I mean, granted, we're happy something happened.
Right.
But it is kind of a shame. That's the impression I got.
Yeah.
And also think about, especially the very first and the last victim. I get the vibe she was preying on insecurity.
Right.
Think about it. The first woman she was middle-aged, unmarried, but desperately wanted to be married.
Mm-hmm.
She was able to lure her in on the promise of a husband, waiting for her in Pola, in Croatia, modern-day Croatia. Now, we don't know this, but this opera singer was told she was going to work for a very influential impresario in Florence.
Yes.
You have to think, what if maybe she at one time, maybe her star had faded a little bit.
Right. She's just so desperate, so passionate, will do whatever it takes.
I don't know if that's the case, but I am seeing a woman who knows, because obviously as a fortune teller, you are privy to a lot of people's personal feelings, almost like a therapist. You are privy
you can read
to
better.
people. People are confessional to you. They are confessing to you the way they would a therapist or a priest or whatnot. And she was able to pluck the strings of these insecurities.
I think you're right.
One deadly symphony. Fuck, I'm good with words, right?
Better than the shit burger we were talking about before.
So Virginia's sister-in-law had grown suspicious over her disappearance, and she knew the last place she had seen her was when Virginia was walking into Leonarda's house.
Okay.
So she notifies the local superintendent of police. They get an investigation begins. And off the bat, Leonarda's, as you would, she's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Right.
But they weren't concerned with Leonarda.
Right.
They didn't think this old, tender business lady would had it in her
Right.
to commit these acts. So their attention turned to her beloved son, Giuseppe.
Giuseppe.
The one who's supposed to be going off to fight for Italy. And being the loving mother that she is, the second they started to turn their radar on Giuseppe, she's like, no, it was Mama Bear. I did it. Leave my fucking kids alone.
Wow.
And she happily confessed to it.
Okay, you know what? I'll give it up for that. Good mom. She's like not going to just let her kid take the fall for that. And a lot of serial killers would. So at least that I'll say, okay.
And this, in the article, they had this clip, and I'm assuming this was from a newspaper article at the time. This described her demeanor after the confession and even in the courtroom.
Yes.
This was interesting. She was tried for murder in Reggio Emilia in 1946. She remained unrepentant, going so far as to correct the official account while on the stand. After her trial in Reggio Emilia last week, Leonarda gripped the witness stand rail with oddly delicate hands and calmly set the prosecutor right on certain details. Her deep-set dark eyes gleamed with a wild inner pride as she concluded, I gave the copper ladle, which I used to skim the fat off the kettles, to my country, which was so badly in need of metal during the last days of the war.
Whoa. That is some poetry. That is some poetic
Can you
shit.
imagine? And not just correcting them. It's not even saying like, no, I did this first and then I hit her with the air. God, I love that she was like, no. I donated that ladle to the government of Italy because they were in desperate need of metals at the end of World War II.
Right.
I love this righteous indignation.
Right. Yeah. She's like, no. Yeah, I did kill those people, but the tools I used to kill them and to turn them into soap and to cakes, I gave to this country. I donated the ladle.
So obviously, she was found guilty of her crimes. She was given 30 years in a prison.
Okay.
Well, she was given a life sentence, 30 of which was spent in an actual prison. And then the remainder of which, the last 3 years of her life, she spent in a criminal asylum. Leonarda died on October 15th, 1970, from cerebral apoplexy. Apparently, a number of the artifacts from the case, including the pot where the victims were boiled down, is on display at the Criminological Museum in Rome.
Oh.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is the story of Leonarda Cianciulli.
Fascinating.
What a sad story. Obviously, what she did, unspeakable.
Right.
And here's what fascinates me. What makes her so interesting. Like most serial killers, no matter their MO, whether we're talking Zodiac, the Ripper, whomever, there's no cap. There's no like, I just need to kill this. It's a even if they have a way they like to do it, there's no like limit. There's no like,
I didn't think about that.
There's no like data limit. And here's what's wild. Obviously, Leonarda, this wasn't like out of self-defense. It wasn't like a spurned lover, a crime. This was deliberate, planned killings.
Right.
But it seems as though she would have stopped at 4. Now, granted, we don't know. Something else could have thought came up. She's like, oh, now I got to kill more to protect me from this. But if we go by this theory, she might have theoretically stopped at 4. Not that that's good. I'm just saying, well, how do you even classify it?
It's just such an odd thing where she is a serial killer, but like you said, it's very, it's very different.
Would she have stopped at 4?
Right.
Now, we know she was a dangerous woman and had to be put away, obviously.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, would she have stopped at 4?
Right.
Did she have a sense in her to be like, well, I don't like doing it. I'm only doing this to protect
because I have to do it.
Because I have to.
But maybe she would have had like a taste for it, though. Maybe that would have awoken something in her.
But then how she used the bodies afterward? If it was simply killing, why not just kill them? Or even if you thought the only way you had to get rid of the bodies was by doing what you did, why turn them into fucking cakes and eat them?
Yeah, why
or make them soap? Why not just find a way to dissolve the bodies like you did and then just throw? Then even after you've disintegrated them, did she feel that by consuming this life, that was part of the ritual of one life for another? Did she have to consume her victims in order to consecrate the pact? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good, because you're right. She didn't have to do those things. And if it was just a way to get rid of the body, she could have turned them into cakes or whatever. And then but maybe food was scarce and blah, blah, blah. But then don't cook. It's because she ate it too. It's not like she got off on giving the cakes to other people. She and her beloved son.
Her beloved fucking Giuseppe.
So she was like okay with the idea.
Talk about a fucking overbearing mother.
And that is a thing with often happening with serial killers, but usually the serial killers had the overbearing mother. In this situation, she was the overbearing mother, and her mother was, I guess, overbearing, but in a completely different way, where she fucking hated her.
She was underbearing. Yeah, you're right. A lot of times these killers have overbearing. They have a mother like a Leonarda. Maybe they weren't killers, but they were, very eccentric,
intense,
oppressive. I don't know what happened to the rest of the kids, but obviously we're talking about Leonarda. But yeah, like this, and God, talk about a mother's love. The second they even insinuated Giuseppe, she was like, nope,
which is good.
Good for her. I knew nothing about this woman.
Yeah, she's very odd.
Our friends over in Europe, maybe you guys did. I don't know. And even over here, to find enough to even make an episode was tough. But ladies and gentlemen, that is Leonarda Cianciulli, the cannibal soap maker.
Our gal.
Wow, what a story.
What a story. We're kicking off serial killers in a cool way, and I'm into it.
And boy, oh boy, do we have more killers coming. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. My name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And this is Creep Street. Citizens of the Milky Way, good night and goodbye.